Mr. John Ramsay. Welcome, Mr. Ramsay. You have 5 minutes with a possible extension of 3. If you could give us your name for the record and the agenda item you're speaking to when you're ready.
Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal inhabitants and pay my respect to the elders past and present. My name is John Ramsay. I represent the Corunna Forest Protection Group. We have petitioners that are endeavouring to stop the logging of Corunna Forest, and they amount to over 4,000 people. So that's collectively a lot of people that are of the opinion that this shouldn't be happening at all. However, I'm here today to request that the motion to have the exclusion zone, which is 50 metres either side of the highway, upgraded to excluded forest. Now, look, I came into this, I knew little about forestry before I moved here and happened to buy a property that adjoined the state forest. And I thought, in February this year, I received a letter from forestry saying, we're going to log this forest shortly, and I thought I need to know more about this. So it was like a job interview. I was treating it as that. So I went about doing research to find out what I could about forestry and how they were working. And in my endeavours to do that, I mean, I've got documentation that's this high that covers all aspects, the IFOA, the RFA, there are about 4 different agreements that Forestry Corporation actually work under. I'm not sure whether they went through any of that with you in the meeting, and I'm glad you were able to have a half-hour meeting with them. I wish the same was afforded to me. With tea and biscuits would have been nice. My point is that having done all this research, I decided that I needed to look on the ground. I needed to find out what the real meaning of forestry was, what all the zonings meant, what all the threatened species licence meant. I looked at their reputation. I looked at what they were capable of doing, what they said they were doing, and what they actually did. And I found an enormous amount of conflict. They're probably the most damning document I have is the annual RFA implementation report, which covers the year from 2004 to 2014. During that time, the EPA monitored 187 out of 2,814 native forest operations. In those 187, they received 2,141 non-compliance with EPL conditions and 1,948 non-compliance with TSL, which is the Threatened Species Licence. Now, that is a pretty damning figure, but not to be content with looking at research and documents that say this and they say that. I decided to go out in the field and have a look for myself. So 2 of the people that are in attendance today I approached to find out more about the effects of logging. And I went out to Mogo. I spoke with Jocelyn, who's about to speak to you about her experience. I also have spoken to Bill, who lives on the edge of the state forest in Bodalla. And frankly, what I saw was pretty terrible. And the way that forestry have conducted their business is nothing short of shameful. And it is just, you know, it's not all right to sit in your ivory tower and make decisions without going out and actually having a look at what this forestry is and what forestry is doing. Because to do that is to be neglectful, and it's not helping anybody, and it's an ill-informed decision that doesn't come from researching every aspect of a particular idea. Now, I know that, you know, forestry would have said, oh, look, it's fine. We're putting in an FMZ 3B, you know, with special conditions. Well, you know, for starters, special prescription areas requires approval of the divisional manager after considering public comment on the proposed amendments. They never sought that. I sought that.
Mr Ramsey, your 5 minutes are up. Councillors, is there a moved by Councillor McGinley for a 3-minute extension, seconded by Councillor Main. Councillors, those in favour? You have a further 3 minutes.
Thank you. Just to talk specifically about what we are asking at Corunna, the 50-metre exclusion zone under the FMZ 3B category can be pretty heavily logged, and I think that Jocelyn will be able to elaborate on that when she has her opportunity to speak. Now, they've also said there's a 10 to 15 metre zone that no trees will be taken from. Well, that's not in there. That's not in the forest. That's part of the RMS land. And as we know, with the widening of the roads that have come down, and I think they've got as far as Dalmeny already, that the visuals on either side of the highway, all the vegetation is being removed. So the 10 to 15 metres that they're leaving doesn't count for anything. So the 50 metres that I'm requesting, which is from the border of the RMS easement into the forest, I'm requesting they don't remove any trees so that we can at least give the idea and give a little bit of protection to the forest and the animals that live within it, and that we can preserve the idea that this really is a forest and that we do care about it. Now, I believe it's incumbent on council to look at this, because this is on your turf. This is on your ground. This affects people in your area. This affects your constituents, your ratepayers that are here and the ones that aren't here. Your thrust is with tone. What do you have to lose, I ask you? You have everything to gain. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for Mr Ramsey? Councillor Main.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Mr Ramsey, for your impassioned presentation this morning. Obviously, a significant issue. Look, are you not that council can play an advocacy role? This is a state matter at the end of the day. Have you approached both the Coalition and the ALC direction on this
meeting with us? We have met with very little response from Andrew Constance. We've sent him the original documents, the same ones that we sent via council. Very little response. And I do realise that this is not, you know, although council don't have the jurisdiction over forestry, I believe that you do have a jurisdiction over your constituent place. I would have thought I didn't have to come. I would have thought all of you collectively would be saying, hey, you know, this forest is on our turf, and what measures are you taking to preserve the nature of it, to preserve the fact that the winery is adjoining it, and all of these situations.
Thank you, Mr Ramsey. Any further questions? Mr Ramsey, look, I just have a couple of questions for you. So you mentioned that you had requested meetings from forestry. Could you give me an idea? Did you send them emails, and approximately when you did that?
We have been communicating constantly with forestry, even since they've started.
Mr. Ramsey, I have no doubt that you've been communicating constantly. This is specifically about your request to have a meeting with them to discuss the issues that you've raised.
The particular issue of the FMZ3.
Any issues? You mentioned in your presentation that you requested a meeting and that you didn't get any response. Could you tell me approximately when you requested that meeting and how you
I'm sorry,
it?
I was addressing the issue with the politicians when I was responding to that question. I have been...
No,
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Okay, in your presentation, you made a statement along the lines of that you had requested a meeting with forestry as a resident and that they would not meet with you. It was in your opening statement, you said, I'm glad that you got the opportunity as council to meet with them. I wish we were afforded the same opportunity.
Afforded the same opportunity to have a meeting with you.
Oh, okay.
You've given forestry a half-hour meeting with tea and biscuits. I just wanted the same opportunity. They have a half-hour opportunity to present their case.
Mr. Ramsey, I have previously, as Mayor, met with other forest advocates.
Yeah.
And once I received their requests, I have met with them. I have never received such a request from you, Mr. Ramsey, to have a meeting.
We've actually had 3 meetings. I think I cancelled one and you cancelled the other. I don't know what the other one was put off because I was ending up that I was going to speak at the meeting. But the previous, so there's been 2 occasions when I've asked for interviews with you.
And I have arranged those meetings.
Well, we both have. We both have. You cancelled one and I cancelled one.
So we're pretty even. But nonetheless, the opportunity was made available to you. So.
Well, yes, to speak with you, not to speak with the entire council.
Okay. Well, I can't comment on any requests. I hadn't seen any requests for you asking to speak with the whole of council, but... But
that would be considered?
Well, you would have to put that request in. It would be up to the individual councillors, Mr. Ramsey. Okay, so anyway, thank you for clearing that up. I thought that you were talking about a request to meet with forestry.
No, it was more a case of the inequality that existed as a result.
The other question... You made a comment and said that it was shameful, their practices that they're currently doing in Corunna. Are you...
Not in Corunna, I didn't say that.
Okay, so you're talking about in other
I'm talking
areas.
About... When I came to this, as I said, I did the research and then I went out on the ground. And if you're assessing somebody to do a job, you look at their CV and you say, what does it look like? Well, they've got all these breaches and this looks terrible. Mogo looks just terrible, what they've done up there. I've been to Bodalla. I've heard stories from everybody. I've seen photographs. I have looked at things extensively to understand the issues at stake here. And I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, this is a bit of a hard pill to swallow, that they're guilty of all these things. But you need to go out there and look. And it's there.
I actually have been out and had a look at quite a few of those things, but I can't speak for other councillors. But what I will say is if you suspect that during their operations they have breached their conditions, I am encouraging you to ensure that you make Forestry Corporation aware of your views and in your opinion where they have breached.
We have been doing that continuously. I think Jocelyn will elaborate on that and Bill could certainly contest to the fact that we are in constant contact with the EPA as well. And it's unfortunate the way that the EPA is structured, that out of all of those breaches that we talked about, forestry were not fined. Only on 3 occasions were they fined out of 4,000 breaches. So you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? That's what I'm asking myself.
Thank you, Mr Ramsey, for your presentation. I apologise, Mr Ramsey. Councillor Tate has a question for
Certainly.
you. Sorry about that.
Yes, Mr Tate. Councillor.
Through you, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor. Mr Ramsey, we did have a presentation last Tuesday from Forestry, and they went through many aspects of what's happening at Corunna.
Yeah.
They gave us these maps now. Have you seen?
Yeah, I presented you with that map.
No, this is the one we got from Forestry.
Well, I
as
also presented you with
Okay,
that.
so you said before that the flora and fauna is getting destroyed and all that sort of
Yes,
stuff.
that's correct.
In here it says that there's an area that's the white-bellied seagulls, there's a protective area, the glossy black cockatoo, there's a restricted area, everything under the sun that's in there, there's a restricted area to make sure that they survive. We're also told how many logs, the big ones, would be left. We were told how many percentage of any tree that's got a branch broken off it, not to be logged. Then the feed trees, we were told all this. And then we also was asked about the Mogo State Forest. And the representative told us quite clearly that he was rapt that we asked the question because it was two totally different forests. And he said that there were trees in there that round and trees in there that round, they're both the same age because they couldn't get up to see the sunlight. And he said, well, you're laughing, but...
Councillor Tate, have you got a question?
I have. Have a good look at this.
I'm totally familiar with that.
Right,
I don't need to look at it.
Can you explain to me why you're protesting everything against what is given to us as the facts that the way they're going to do the operation?
Because the way that they logged Mogo Forest was exactly the same zoning as they are applying to Corunna Forest. Now, when I came to you, and when I came to you, they hadn't started logging. All I had was the credentials of these people that have been out at Bodalla, that have been to Mogo, that are guilty of all these breaches. That's what I had to go on. Was I going to feel confident that they were going to do the right thing? No, I'm not confident they're going to do the right thing. I'm suggesting that if we just ask for that 50-metre exclusion zone to be left without any logging, then we guarantee the survival of that area and that critical area, which is visually the entrance to the central Tilba landscape, etc. Are we done?
Got a further question, Councillor Tate?
It's through you, Madam Mayor. Mr Ramsey, are you aware that Councillor Mayne this morning stated that at the meeting last week we were told by the forestry that in fact their buffer zone was beyond that, way beyond that. In fact, I think it was to 60 metres. Are you, Councillor Mayne, noted that this morning? Are you aware of that?
I explained that the area of the road easement, the main road easement, well, that's the additional area he's talking about, but we can't rely on that being there for any length of time because it's likely that the RMS will take out all of that vegetation and that precludes it. The only area that forestry have set aside that belongs to forestry is the 50-metre zone that you see depicted on that map.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, because that was contrary to the advice that we were told from Council by the State Forestry that the road easement wasn't the consideration of their within their zone and within their rights. And I'd agree with you that it is disappointing that you haven't actually sought the briefing with State Forestry in this regard. So I'm
point of order, Councillor.
My point of order is that it's misleading information and that it's contrary to the advice that we received from professional forestry that their management actually extended in the state forest area and did not include the road reserve at all, which is being alluded to here.
Councillor, and I think you will have the opportunity to express those views in debate. Mr Ramsey, I think Councillor Nathan has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr Ramsey. Mr Ramsey, are you aware of when Corunna was dedicated as a state forest?
No, not exactly. I did look it up at one stage, but I have forgotten.
Well, it's only marginally older than me
Yeah,
by 3 years. Okay?
yeah,
It was dedicated as a state forest in 1950
yeah.
because prior to that it had been a dairy farm since the 1800s. So my question to you then, my second question is, how long do you think it takes to regenerate to be able to be harvested, and at what stage is the harvesting done?
Well, I have looked at that, and I have researched when they logged it last and how long it's taken to get to its current situation. And the point of difference that I have found in exploring that is that when it was Forest New South Wales, it was done in a totally different way to when it became a corporation. And I've spoken to numerous people about that, and the fact that Forest Corporation are acting outside of the guidelines that they should be, and certainly I would not have been as concerned as I am if I thought that Forest New South Wales, as we knew it, was still in charge of the operation. But being a corporation and having these quotas that they have to fulfil with the wood chipping mill in Eden and logs going to Nowra, etc., it has put a whole different complexity on the way that they are doing forestry. And my frame of reference was, all right, go and have a look at some of the forests, see how they are doing it. I would say to you, 70 years it will take, 50 to 70 years for Mogo to recover. But the way they've logged Corunna, and this has only been, they've only done it for 1 week, so it's a bit early to tell, but they've done it because we've brought a lot of pressure to bear via the EPA and via our meetings with council, etc. And they look like they're going to do work that is better considered, but they still, the only way to guarantee what the outcome is going to be, and I don't see that this is such a big ask, is just to say, please leave this 50 metre strip without logging.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsay. I don't think there's any further questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.